Hello again. This is Mark Meloon from markmeloon.com, helping data scientists get the job of their dreams. And I have with me Ashani DeSilva, who is a recruiter. And more importantly, she is a recruiter who helps data scientists get the job of their dreams. So we're lucky enough to have her here today. Going to ask her a lot of great questions. I'm sure she's got plenty of useful advice for us. And Ashani, welcome. How are you doing?
Hi, Mark. Good morning. How are you?
I'm very good over here. Hope you're all set to give us lots of great info.
I am. I'm here to give some basic tips and tricks I think every candidate should be aware of when working with a recruiter.
Fantastic. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? And you have your own recruiting agency, right? And so, if you could tell us a little bit more about what you do and the kinds of candidates you serve and so forth, that would be great.
Sure. So I started a company called Binary Search in San Francisco and Los Angeles about a year ago. And I've been a recruiter for 5 years. I've worked with some of the best headhunters in the Bay and Southern California, including Matt Alling, who's the founder of Calvin Group, who's one of my partners, and then Riviera Partners as well in San Francisco, which is one of the most well-known executive recruiting companies, I think, in the nation. With experience in both agencies, I decided, hey, why not start my own shop? Have so many great contacts, not only on the client side, but the candidates. And at the end of the day, I just want to help people find the job of their dreams.
You know, that's a good point. So I do want to let the audience know that I know Ashani, before today. So she and I have worked
Try for
together.
a while.
Yeah, we've known each other for a while, and I've I've met some great recruiters and some not so great ones. And so Ashani is one of the ones who has really stuck out in my mind as someone who really does care about the candidate and placing them and making sure they've got a position they're going to really like. And unfortunately, not all recruiters are like that, and I've met some of the other
I've
kinds.
heard.
So yeah. Some of them just see you as a number and a paycheck, and that's not that pleasant of an experience. So it's certainly great to have someone who really cares, on us to give us some information.
Yeah, because I think when recruiters don't care, that's when candidates, there's a higher turnover rate, right?
Hmm.
Because for me, I've worked with over 60 candidates and only two, but even them, they waited for a year. But majority of my candidates stay, they're happy, the clients are happy, and that's in the end of the day what a recruiter's job is supposed to be about.
No, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, how they get placed depends on, or makes a huge impact on how long they're going to stay.
Exactly. And yeah, definitely I think good recruiters will keep that in mind.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I think that working with a recruiter is important, and there's lots of benefits to it. But how does an applicant actually? I mean, I've been lucky enough to have recruiters reach out to me, but how does an applicant, someone looking for a job, get in touch with the recruiter? Is there anything they can do to get the attention of a recruiter?
I think even, let's say you directly apply to a job, go on LinkedIn, find a hiring manager who is, if it's a data scientist role, of course, looking for maybe an executive, a hiring manager within that department, and say hi. Get a nice subject line going, try to get in touch with that person, try to go the extra mile other than just sitting there and hoping and praying someone calls you. That even giving a call to the company and maybe talking to the HR team and just letting them know, hey, your interests. I think those are just easy ways just to separate yourself from the rest of the applicants. And I think keyword search, right? Recruiters, that what we use when we have a job, we look at the basic requirements of the position, and then we go in and we try to do our best to search for those keywords. So making sure that's on there. And even if you're a new grad and you're just trying to get your first job, maybe talking about the technologies and the things that interest you and you're hoping to find. That's important too. I look at that. I think definitely hiring managers look at that too.
Now, you mentioned, going to websites and looking up and seeing who the in-house recruiters are. What
Sure.
about independent recruiters like you? Is it
Like
kind of
me.
the same process, or?
Kind the same process. I feel, let's say you engage with a recruiter and I've extended a message and you are interested. But then for some reason you won't hear back. It happens a lot, right? Because on my end, I'm working with 5, 6 different clients at a time, sometimes who knows how many candidates. Totally okay with you. Why not go on the person's recruiter's page, add them as a friend, maybe try to create some dialogue, things like that. There's always a email or number for most recruiters that you can find on their profile pretty easily. So there's a lot of different ways of being creative and making sure, hey, I'm interested, I want to work with you, and recruiters definitely appreciate that for sure.
Okay, that was my next question. How receptive are you to inbound emails or phone calls or something like that?
Sure.
Is that something you welcome?
I do, but sometimes I just don't have a job to help you. So in those cases, if I don't, especially in San Francisco, I have a lot of recruiters who work at different companies like Salesforce or Snapchat or I don't know, there's so many others. I'm more than happy to get you in touch with a person at that company if I have a contact to help. So sometimes I might not even get back to you, which I feel bad because I try to get back to everyone. But majority of the time, hey, I'll send you a quick note. I'm so sorry I don't have a role right now, but here are some contacts who would look great.
When you don't have a role, do
Sure.
you hold on to their name and add them to a
Yeah.
database or?
Yes, I
Okay,
definitely do. And I let them know. And I always am very upfront. Hey, right now, I just don't see anything. But here are some companies in your area that are looking. And then also, of course, I'll get in touch with you, at a later date, if there's something that comes across my way. For
okay.
sure.
Now,
Yeah.
should a candidate restrict themselves to only communicating with a handful of recruiters, or because I know you guys tend to, tend to be exclusive and so forth, and at least some of the recruiters I've talked with in the past, they want you to only be talking with them and so forth. So should a candidate sort of reach out to maybe 3 of you and then wait to hear back, or should they just kind of fire out messages to a bunch of them?
I guess it depends, right? Because for binary search, I'm actually part of a network of recruiters. So when you work with me, you get the benefit of working like with 10 different partners in different areas of the country. Now, other shops are different. It really depends on the shop and who you're working with. But I think overall, the main thing is, do you trust the recruiter? Do you feel like they have good intentions for you? That's number one, right? Because like you said, there's so many out there who
Yeah,
might not
that'll
have
cut
your
down the numbers right
interest
there.
at heart. So I think that's number one. Number two, I mean, it's your career. It's your career in the end of the day, right? So, trust is great, but if a recruiter is just not showing you the roles that you want, then trust your instincts and find it. There's plenty of recruiters out there who have the role that's right for you.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Now, tell me a little bit about timeline and what's the best way to work with recruiters. Um, uh, sometimes I feel like the recruiters like do this, do that, at a very rapid time frame and so forth. Should how should the applicant deal with that? I mean, should they just try to keep pace with the recruiter, or go at their own comfort level, or what's sort of a good guideline there?
Keep pace with the recruiter because our goal is to help you, if you're interested in one of our opportunities, is help you get the job with everything that comes with it. Of course, the great salary, the great compensation, everything, right? So I say you should be contacting or in contact with your recruiter at least once a week. Definitely that first call is so important. You really have to be really honest. And again, this comes with the trust part. But if you trust your recruiter, being open about your salary expectations, right? Technically what you want to work with, what industry really excites you, right? Because these are the things that's going to help us create a story and understand who you are and kind of keep you on track. And then following up with your recruiter after interviews, it's so important. I think people don't realize it's not actually just for the recruiters, for the client, because sometimes there's so many candidates, interviewing with these hiring managers, that if we don't send a trigger, which is the feedback, sometimes they'll take a little longer to get back to us, which means you have to wait longer to figure out, is this a company that you're really interested in? So it's a trigger when you follow up with us after interview. And also, it's just a great way to kind of help figure out, are you on the right track to find the job you want, or do we need to shift things because these opportunities aren't lining up with what you want?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Now, along those lines, is there, when you have this first call with a potential client, obviously, you're kind of inclined to work with, you're interested in finding out about them, whether you want to work with them. They're probably eager to work with you. Is there any way that can kind of blow that first call where, you come away and you're like, no, I do not want to work with this person?
Yeah, not for me, but for the client, yes. I think sometimes, especially if this is a little more for the senior, kind of getting into that lead management, there's that urge, you want to prove yourself and things like that, which is great. But in the end of the day, if you're interviewing for a senior or whatever title it is, you have to respect that. And I think some candidates will try to use maybe their experience, like, hey, I have 10 years experience. I want a management role. Right now, we don't have that, So in the end of the day, technically meet what the company wants, and then let's chat about some of the other specifics about the role. So I think when it comes to a recruiter, the main thing is being honest, following up. If something happens and you need to reschedule a call, totally cool. Give us a heads up because it's a reflection of you, right? And I will always take the blame when it comes to client end. Like I'll be like, oh, I forgot, I made the mistake. But there's only so many times I could do that for different candidates. But I think, yeah, being honest with your recruiter, really understanding the role and making sure you're interviewing for that position and not constantly trying to kind of maybe use your experience to, yeah, leverage something else.
Okay, that's interesting. So I've always thought that working with the recruiter in the best case is sort of like a partnership, right?
Yes,
Where
correct.
they're trying to help you, you're trying to help them. You've got a common shared goal. How can a applicant on their end make this partnership work? Should they be, do they need to prepare somehow? Um, what level of trust do they need to have in you? How does that partnership actually work?
Sure. I think I'm always really surprised when candidates don't utilize me, because majority of the time I've worked with a client for maybe 2 to 6 months. We don't know, depending on how long the position's been open. But we have so much valid, information. And so it's definitely a partnership. So it's a two-way street, right? Like, hey, I will normally tell my candidate, hey, this is how I work. This is where this is the timeline, when time frame in the day when I'm going to be reaching out. If I don't hear from you, I'm going to give you a call, right? Because I'm, again, trying to keep you on pace with what's going on with this client. And you may not know, but I definitely know there's maybe 3 other agencies or wherever it may be.
Mm.
So I think being as clear as possible up front, that's what I try to do. And then knowing it's your job, right? If you're really interested in this, I'm an arm from, extension of this company. So, showing up and understanding that this is a partnership and not being shy to ask questions. I feel like this happens more on the junior, mid-level candidates where they have all these questions, but for whatever reason they feel a little shy to ask. Never feel shy, especially with a third-party recruiter. I mean, we're only here to help you.
Okay, interesting. So what kinds of questions do you have people ask, or do you wish that they would ask?
I wish people would ask, yeah, technically, what type of questions does this company should I expect? I feel like that seems like a pretty basic one,
Yeah, right.
Like, is there programming tests? Are they asking what's going on with this company? What's the challenge that, they're trying to meet? And why are they interviewing these candidates right now? Why are jobs open? These are questions we actually have most of the answers. If we don't, we can always find out pretty quickly. But the more the more you're a detective, obviously, the easier the process will be. All right.
That's such a great point that I tell people, job hunters, all the time. They need to think less about themselves and what they want and more about the company and what the company wants. But a lot of people, first of all, they don't realize that, first of all. But even so, even those who do, have trouble putting themselves in the shoes of the company, and they don't know how to go about doing that. And so what I heard you just say is that you're actually the one who can give them their answers and give them the point of view of the company, and basically do the research for them almost.
Exactly. That is the benefit of working with a third party recruiter, because we have experience with dealing with so many different clients and then so many different types of interviews. We kind of get, every company's different and unique. But yes, we have definitely very specific tips we can give you. And I try to give it, even if the candidate doesn't seem to really always want it. But I'll write an email, I'll be as detailed as possible, just so they have the information. But maybe it's life, right? People are busy, they have a job, they have kids. I can only imagine how stressful it is to have an interview. So I try to be mindful of that. But yes, make your life easier and use your recruiter.
Yeah, I think a lot of times it's, like you said, for junior roles especially. I
Yeah.
think when you're first starting a job search, and I run into this with data scientists all the time. They've taken the courses, maybe they've done a project or two, and then they feel like that's enough and they should get a job. And I impress upon them, no, look, there's job search skills as well,
Yeah.
right? And so, but a lot of them, haven't, don't really understand that, and again, don't know how to go about doing it. So I think that may be part of why they're not asking you questions, is that it doesn't occur to them as something important. They figure, well, I've got my education, that should be good enough, right?
Right. And on that note, if you're a recent grad, putting as much of the relevant experience you gained from your education clearly there on your resume or LinkedIn. That's how I got my first job. I had experience from college that made sense for a position that I was going for. So I highlighted that like crazy in my resume. And when I went for the interview, I spoke about it and I ended up getting the job. I didn't take it. But the whole thing is, you're trying to make whatever experience you have as relevant as possible to that job. So it's coursework, and I'm sure, can definitely relate. Your coursework definitely has a lot to say, in whether you're going to get that job or not. But it's all about how you articulate and how you can, you know, share that information.
Yeah, okay. So I'm glad you brought up resumes. What other do's and don'ts do you have for, especially beginning data scientists, on what to do with their
Yeah,
resumes? Because I have looked at a lot of resumes. Not only
right.
have I, interviewed for positions, but I've interviewed, people who are trying to get positions, and I've seen a lot of resumes. A lot of them are not too good. So
Right.
let's hear from you. What's good in a resume, and what's bad to put in there?
Well, it's tough because for engineering, it's completely different because it's KISS. I love that. Keep it simple. I don't want to say stupid, but keep it simple as much as possible. Um, Keywords again. It's just about trying to really understand the job and the needs of that role, and trying to figure out how I'm gonna, in the most simplest way, be able to showcase my skill set and how I'm going to be able to, impact this company, right? I think with data scientists, especially, I love it. I love reading the thesis. I love reading the work that, a person has done in school or on the side, because that tells me your mindset right there, right? Now, I can only imagine. I mean, but in the end of the day, again, you have to keep that your basic requirements and experience to as simple as possible, because there's so many applicants going in and out of those hiring managers' desks. You just really want it to read clearly, and I think resume writing skill set hasn't changed that much. I think the basics are still the same. But yeah, using Glassdoor, using your recruiter, using different sources. I think actually going to more in-person meetups. Most of these companies have
Mm.
some sort of meetup. Why not go? Figure out before you even apply what's happening. What do I need to bring to the table, and then go apply. If you have the time to do all that. But if you have a job of your dreams, I think that could help a lot.
Yeah, right. I mean, yeah, like you said, if there's time, but
Yeah,
there's a lot of competition for these jobs, so you got
sure.
to make the time. You got to do something above and beyond what everybody else is doing, because they've all taken the same classes you have, and so
Okay,
what's
sure.
going to make you stand out?
Sure, exactly. And I think, again, there's always somebody on LinkedIn who will help you. Guaranteed. You just have to be diligent enough and get yourself out there and talk to people and, add people, and somebody will give you the information you're looking for. So I think you just can't be lazy. You just got to go and make it happen.
We should come up with an acronym of "Don't be lazy." What is it?
Don't be
Don't
lazy. Yeah.
DBL.
Your, on
DBL.
your computer. Now you don't even have to go out and meet people.
Yeah,
Right.
that's a really good point. Is some data scientists are introverts. You brought up the thing about
True.
meetups and so forth.
I
That
hear
is
that.
good, but LinkedIn
Yeah,
is just as good for networking now as well. So you can
sure.
do that whenever, wherever. So
Exactly. And it's just a great way, an easy way for you to have an introduction into the company.
yes, indeed, indeed. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes here. So that was good, actually. I like the resume tips, and I also like the fact that you talk about keep it simple, because again, someone who has reviewed resumes, I've seen resumes that are like 4 pages long, and
Yeah,
the
especially with data scientists, I can imagine. Yeah.
yeah, 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 and that's just too much to read through, right? So, in fact, I've heard statistics that when someone receives a resume, they make a decision in 6 seconds whether to
Yeah,
continue reading it in more detail or throwing it away.
it's true. I know. I mean, as a recruiter, I take a little longer, of course, but hiring managers, no, they're not
Yeah,
going to take time, unfortunately. I mean, if you have education, I think they'll take a little more time. I mean, if they see that your education meets what they're looking for, But but in the end of the day, yeah, you really just got to understand the needs of the role, the company, and just make sure it's clear to read that you have that skill set.
so the resumes are the start of the job process, and when
Sure.
when I in the past when I've interviewed, I've had recruiters. I guess it was mostly recruiters ask me straight up, "What kind of salary range are you looking for?" And I'm never sure whether to answer them straight or to kind of hem and haw and try to dodge the question.
Right.
What would you recommend for applicants when they get asked that, especially early in the process?
Right. Well, first of all, now in California, no one can ask your base salary, right, from past jobs, right? It's against the law. So that works in the favor of a candidate. But when you're working with a third party recruiter, again, it's a partnership, right? Again, this comes with trust. If you feel like you can trust the person, it's very important because we want to make sure we're gearing you up, or we're setting you up properly so you get what you're looking for.
Mm.
Now, this is a little different. I think with junior, mid-level candidates is a little more, it's a little more, you kind of know the basic expectation for your salary. But in the end of the day, it's about you and your need, right? You can go on Glassdoor. I can tell you different rates for different cities and all that. But what do you need? And are you being realistic? And in the end of the day, know what your number is and why you feel like you deserve it. Especially, this is going in for the candidates who have 3 to plus years, because that's where you want to stay, make sure your salary meets what's going on in the market, right? You can't fall that much lower, because then it gets more difficult, as you move along in your career. So I think the main thing is know your number, be confident, and figure out the reasons why you're asking for that. And I think especially for women, I have to say this, confidence is everything when it comes to salary negotiations. And you just can't be shy about it. You should know your self-worth. You know technically, again, what you're bringing into this opportunity, and you have to go for it. I just worked with a candidate real quick. She 5 years from Carnegie Mellon, really great data engineer. And she knew what her self-worth was. She went into the on-site. She talked to the co-founders like, hey, this is what I can bring to the table. This is where you guys need some help with. And she was asking for a bit of a higher rate. But in the end of the day, she proved what she can bring to the table, how she's going to impact this team. And they gave it to her 100%. Not even a question. Because if they didn't, she would have been picked up by Amazon or Google or whoever else, the big shops. So knowing your number, being confident, and understanding the reasons why you're asking for it.
Yeah, and I think probably part of the reason she got it is because, like you said, she was talking about what problems she could solve for them too, right? As
Yeah.
opposed to saying, "Here's me, here's my skills." It
Yeah.
was more like phrasing it in terms of, okay, here's you've got these problems. I'm aware of them, and here's how I would solve them for you.
Right, exactly. And if you can really learn to articulate your experience and your ability to do that, I think it's going to be a lot easier of a conversation. And try to, again, keep it simple, right? Don't make it more complicated. This is what I want. This is why. There it is. But don't throw out numbers out there and hopes and dreams again. We want to try to make it as, based on your experience, not on hopes and dreams, right? I mean, yeah, I think that's the main thing.
Okay, all right. So you are saying that when they make an offer, don't let them lowball you. That you should really
Right.
stick to your guns. So
You should stick to your guns. Yes. I mean, again, using Glassdoor, using your recruiter, I'll of course know exactly the range for every single job I have. And I will let you know, hey, if you're a little bit in the higher end or lower end, let's work with that. Let's you and me create a plan that keeps you on track so you get the salary and the compensation that you want from this opportunity. And I will make sure that happens. And again, also sometimes recruiters work with the wrong person. It's happened even to me. I've worked with a hiring manager, and then sometimes as a recruiter, we work with the HR team. And sometimes there's a little bit of issue when it comes to negotiating. I've had that, and I've had to go back to a CTO or a director on the team, like, hey, there's a little bit of problems with the negotiating here with the salary expectation. This person wants this. There's a little back and forth. Pretty much make sure you're negotiating with the right person in that org. Because if you're negotiating with the wrong person, you will get a different answer. And sometimes it's not always going to be the answer you want.
oh wow, all right.
Ah, being
So
aware of that.
yeah, so that's interesting. So is it? I guess I just assumed there would be one point of contact at a company that you
Right.
would be talking with salary with, but is it the case where there might be multiple ones telling you multiple
Yeah.
different things?
Yeah. And it's tough. This is a very gray area. It's very tough to understand like who's the right person and stuff like that. I think again for mid-level senior developers, I don't think this doesn't really apply as much. But if you feel like again you're just not getting the right offer and you feel like there's miscommunication, get that cleared. And as a recruiter, and for me and my partners, we always make sure that's not something you have to worry about. But I think with certain you just have to follow your instincts, I guess. That's in the end of the day. And it's your job, it's your career, and we're here to facilitate and help as much as we can.
Sure, sure. Now you said something that I want to follow up on, and you said that you
Sure.
had recently worked with a female candidate, a woman, and that one of the things that was really important for her was confidence during her interview. Now,
Yeah.
this is tech, and whether we'd like to admit it or not, there
Right.
is it's a harder road for women than it is for men. So, do you have any specific tips for women on any aspect of the job search that you think can help level the playing field a little bit?
I think working with recruiters and, you know, always keeping an eye out on the next opportunity is part of the game. It's part of the industry. And I feel like men are very aware of this. And, if they see an interesting opportunity, they'll at least give it a call or, respond or, explore it. I mean, this is just me. I know we're probably getting a lot of comments on your YouTube about this, but I feel like women don't participate as much, or maybe they're a little more comfortable. I don't know what it is. And I would love, and I'm actually going to a meetup in LA, a Women in Tech meetup, because I just would like to learn a little bit more, because all these startups, and I work with a lot more startups, they want more women. They want to make sure their offices are diverse and, all those things, but just a lot of women don't seem to want to, give them a shot, at least in LA. So I don't know. I don't want to, make a statement about all women, obviously, but I just feel like it's part of the game. And, we need a lot more women in these early stage startups. How about you? Have you seen anything on your end? I know.
That's a good question. Now that I think about it. I guess I'm so blind to these sorts of things. I've never really paid much attention one way or the other. But
Sure.
it's interesting. If I hear you correctly, you're saying that women go for the larger companies and they're not as inclined to pursue the startups. Is that what you're saying?
I know I don't want to quite say that because, again, but a little bit, yeah. And the amount of large companies, I have a list I could send you in LA with all the layoffs. Sometimes a startup that's backed with a good VC has a great executive team can be safer than some of these larger organizations, right? And I just would love to see a lot more females in some of these startups, but not sure. Yeah, what's the gap there?
Now, do you have any? I don't. As a woman, I don't know how often this comes up,
Sure,
right? But knowing that there is this bias out there,
sure.
do women candidates have to worry about? There's questions you can't ask, like are you married and things like that. So,
No.
but I imagine that some of these companies may try to ask sort of leading questions to try to get you to answer
Oh,
those
they do.
things. So,
Yeah.
what I mean, besides being aware of those pitfalls, is there anything a woman candidate should keep in mind to avoid some of those tricks?
It's tough because it really varies for situation to situation, but depends on the situation. But I would say overall, it's the same. You have to again know your technical ability. You have to know what you want and do your best to navigate that. But I don't know. I feel like if there's a startup and you're being contacted and there's all these good things, why not at least take a call and explore it? Doesn't mean just because you take a call or you accept an email doesn't mean you're leaving your current opportunity at all, right? It just means you're exploring it. And I think that's the difference. I think men maybe are a little bit open to exploring and just seeing
Hmm.
versus women. Maybe it's a little bit like, hey, if I respond, I have a commitment that, I might not be able to fulfill. And that's not true at all. In my case, hey, if you just want to explore and just maybe take a first call, that's completely on you. And I respect that. And, maybe there's something about that.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, yeah, that's good information to know, certainly.
Yeah.
A minute ago, you were talking about startups, and so I think that's interesting. So I want to ask a follow-up question on that. Um, startups, you can either work for a big company or a mid-sized company or a startup as well. There are pros and cons to each. But of course, one of the cons to working for a startup is that they're less established. What happens if they fold? For example, I know of a data scientist, actually a fairly senior one, who contacted me recently because he walked into work one day and said, they told us we ran out of money, we have to lay everyone off. So, so
Yeah.
that's a problem. For someone who is considering, excuse me, interviewing with a startup, what are some things that they should be looking for that type of role?
Sure. I think VC, you got to do your research. You have to understand who is backing this company and why. A lot of VCs have specific industries they like to stay within. And there's a lot of, I mean, there's so many out there. I'm not going to name, all of them, but there's some major ones that obviously you want to take notice. But also the executive team, who's running the shop? Just because people have PhDs or, degrees doesn't mean much anymore, right? A lot of people have, degrees. So then you have to look at the experience, is this the person's first startup? Is this the first startup within this industry? There's so many different questions. And as a recruiter, I always try to give as much information so you don't have to do tons of homework on your end. But yeah, I think those are just some general guidelines. And I think in the end of the day, you have to know who you are and what you want. For example, I've worked at a small boutique agency, and then I've worked with a massive agency, right? For me, I like a smaller shop. I like something where I can see my impact, where I can have, there's not as much politics, things like that. You just have to figure out for yourself. And I hope everyone gets a chance to work at a startup and a bigger company so they get that experience. But I think that's definitely just a personal choice. But, of course, everyone wants startup under their belt, I think, or most people would love that experience. And I think, yeah, why not? If you believe in the product, take a shot. There's just so many great ones.
You mentioned a couple of interesting benefits of working for a startup. That you get to see the benefit of the work you're doing, and there's less office politics. What are some
Yeah.
other pros that you think, some reasons to consider a startup?
I think especially for junior, recent grads, I love it. I'm working actually with a lot of mid-level, that applicants right now, and I love that a lot of them are working at startups because they get to wear so many different hats. They get so much experience right off the gate, right out coming out of school. That I mean, gosh, maybe 1, 2 years at a startup, you can get a job anywhere. With that type of experience. So I think I mean, of course, if you just end up going to a big company, sure, there's going to be a lot of life lessons there, I'm sure. But, if you get into a startup, I really think, understanding how a product is run, how it grows, having that experience, I mean, that's going to be valuable no matter what, So I think if you can find a great startup out of school, I think sometimes that could be the best route because you'll be tested in so many ways, and that's going to help a lot in your career.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That I guess it hadn't occurred to me before. Is that you're right that at a startup you will be doing a lot more than just crunching the numbers, data science like that, and
Yeah.
that is great experience. That then when you're looking for your next job, that will certainly give you an edge over the people who did just put their head down in their cubicle and sit in front of their computer all day long and so forth. So
Yeah.
that's interesting. Not only is the startup experience enjoyable in its own right, but it's also a great stepping stone to whatever you want to do next.
That's what I'm saying. Sometimes it's a great stepping stone. And you have to look at that too. When you're working a recruiter, of course we always want you to be, happily employed for many, many years with one opportunity, but sometimes it's just a great stepping stone, especially early in your career. Never understands that. So I think right out of school you really have to be very, picky, yeah, on an opportunity you choose and try to get as much experience as possible for your next one.
My one of my friends, actually my roommate in grad school, he
Mm-hmm.
joined a startup that his professor, his advisor,
Oh,
had
sure.
started up. So he started working with them, and about I don't remember what the timeline is, but a couple of years later, they were acquired, and then that company was acquired, and so forth. Anyhow, fast forward a couple of years, he's filthy rich now. I mean,
Right.
he's my age, but he's retired, and and
Exactly. That can happen too.
yeah, that's another benefit of working for a startup, especially when you're young, is that, if you hit the jackpot, you may
Yeah.
be set for life, at
Change
the
your
age of
life.
30.
I know it's crazy. And again, I mean, there's nothing, I mean, I just started my own company. It's a crazy feeling. And I hope everyone gets a small taste of it because, I mean, there's so many things you learn along the way.
Mhm. Talking about the differences between startups and larger companies, um,
Sure.
how is there a different strategy or tactics that an applicant should do for one versus the other?
Sure. Depends. Like we were recently working with Riot Games, a massive company. I mean, but that's the more of a cultural. It's like it's different because it's such an amazing company and great opportunity. But you know, um, I would say the biggest thing is understanding that whether it's a big org or smaller, it's understanding the culture of the company is very important. I think again, I guess this is a little more on the startup end, but I think no, I don't think that's a big difference when you're interviewing for the team. I mean, in the end of the day, they're looking for XYZ. If you have it, that's what they're going to test you on. So I think interviewing, it doesn't change. But again, I'm not talking about the Amazon, Googles of the world because obviously I don't recruit for them. But no, I don't think it's a big difference. It's a choice, and whether culturally maybe you fit in and you feel comfortable and you feel like this company's going to really take your career to the next step. But yeah, overall, I don't think it's that different. I'm trying to think of examples. I've worked with some bigger companies. Of course, I have Open Table. I don't think there's that much of a big difference.
Okay, all right. Well, that's good to know. Um,
Yeah.
Talking about resumes and so forth, what are some? I'm sure you've seen some big mistakes that people have made. What are some of the big mistakes or common mistakes or big mistakes that you see people do? Especially junior candidates when they're looking for a position.
Sure. I would say maybe some people I think do write things on their resume that they don't quite have experience with, and
Hmm.
you're gonna be tested on. If it's on your resume, you can be tested on it. I just actually was working with a candidate, and he, wrote all these great things, and technically, I was like, wow, like this is an amazing. You look, technically great. This shouldn't be a problem. But then he goes in, and he just did not have the experience or, comfortable. He wasn't comfortable with what he talked about. So don't try to be someone you're not, right? Especially if you're a junior. I mean, no one expects you to be where, people are later stage in their career. So being honest, I think again, interviewing for the job that that's in front of you, not again interviewing for the management position. Of course, sharing, hey, your career aspirations is always great, but and then the day, if it's a senior role or whatever the title may be, that's the position you're interviewing for. So making sure you're meeting the requirements there, and I think just showing up and following up. I think that's another one. I feel like a lot of candidates sometimes will fall off because of XYZ, whatever the reason is.
Hmm.
And, again, as a recruiter, we're trying to keep you on pace with what's going on with that client. And sometimes, of course, things happen, but trying to keep the communication open. I think that's really important. And whether some people now love me to text them. Some people want me to email, whatever it may be. Create a place that you feel comfortable and let the candidate know, hey, I really would love it if you email me during these times, wherever it is. Be as honest as possible. I think, you will definitely never screw up that first call.
Now you mentioned follow-ups a couple times during this interview. So, and one of the things you talked about was the importance of when you get done with an interview, call the recruiter and let them know, how it went. So that's
Sure.
one type of follow-up. In addition to that, should an applicant say reach out to the people, the people at the company that they interviewed with as well?
Sure. Sometimes after the first phone call, no. I mean, it's 30 minutes, it's not really necessary. But yes, definitely after, some of the coding challenges and you've talked to you've spent a lot of time with the client. Yes. And definitely after the on-site. You'll be surprised how many candidates I actually end up getting a job for because they sent that follow-up email and they were like, hey, I messed up here. This is what I would have done different. Love to continue the conversation. And that's what ended up having, getting the job. It's crazy. The small, things that we forget about are still important.
That reminds me of a great story. When I was just coming out of school, looking for my first position, I was going to school in Pasadena, just outside of LA, and I was interviewing with a company in Santa Barbara. So maybe a 2-hour one-way trip and so forth. So I went there and had an all-day site visit. I forget how many people I interviewed with, 7 people or something like that. As
Right.
soon as I got done, I raced home all the way down to back to Pasadena, and I typed up. I guess this was before email was sort of widely used in
Sure.
circulation. So I typed up some thank you letters individually for each person, not the same one for each person.
Very key.
And then stuck these in the mailbox right before the last mail delivery at 5 or 5:30. So they ended up
Sure.
getting it the very next day.
No,
And this company actually ended up hiring me. And so one of the things they
very
remarked
good.
is my hustle. That they said, "Wow, I can't believe that your thank you letters came the very next day." But
Right.
that was because I put some serious effort into it too. And
Yeah.
like you said, it seems like such a silly thing, but a
That's
thank
the
you
old
letter,
fashioned thing
yeah,
people. appreciate it.
Yeah,
People.
yeah, and even saying, oh, if we had more time, I would have talked with you about, blank. So,
Yeah. And, follow up on that is also giving notes. I mean, candidates might not care about this, but it helps the client. Okay. Because sometimes, they're also kind of seeing how's their interview doing? Is it really testing what it's supposed to? Is it, completely, do we need changes? Is it too long? Is it too short? So these follow up, answers, that feedback that we get helps these clients, assess, their interview process. So, I
wow.
mean, that may not, Candace might not care so much about that, but we do as a client because we want to help them, and we're trying to make sure the process is as fair as possible.
Well, that's interesting. Wow, I didn't realize that. I'm glad to hear that companies are open to feedback on their interview
Yeah.
process. So,
And they do change their process sometimes. If
okay.
they get feedback that's saying the same thing, they will change. A lot of clients will change their interview
Oh, that's
process.
good to hear. Fantastic.
Yeah. Uh,
Well, we've talked about a lot of different things here. I'm wondering, is there anything that we left out? Do you have any other last minute tips for data science job seekers?
um, Overall, the first call is really, really important. That really sets the bar for your relationship with the recruiter, and I think you're right. You actually absolutely right. Some people are a little more shy or introvert, or, maybe it's their first time talking to a recruiter. Now I'm a little bit more of a bubbly personality, so I think I'm always asking questions and,
What, really?
making people feel comfortable. But I'm assuming there's a lot of recruiters who may not be like that. So again, it's your job search. Be honest. Most recruiters, I think most, are really good people who are really just trying to help. Right? Most of it, we work for free. We really do, and we're doing it because there's a passion behind us that we really want people to find a career that makes them happy and really, just makes them excited to go to work, right? And again, if you find that recruiter and you feel that trust, be honest, be upfront, and be confident about what you want, because that's going to dictate a lot of the process moving forward.
Hmm. Good words of advice. Now, if anybody is listening to this and they want to follow up with you, maybe they want to work with you, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Sure, definitely. I'll add some links for my LinkedIn. I have a website, and hey, just email, call. I'm always open, and I just think, yeah, I think, yeah, I'd love to connect with you, anyone in San Francisco or LA. And I actually happen to have partners in New York
That's what
and
you
Texas.
said. Yeah.
Yeah, so I can always, even if I don't have the right opportunity, I can always get you in touch with somebody who does.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you very much for giving us so much of your time. Lots and
No
lots of great
problem.
information, lots of stuff you can't hear other places. So,
Sure.
I'm sure that all the viewers here are going to get a lot of value out of it. And thank you for your time.
No problem. Thank you so much, and we'll talk soon.
All right, have a great day.
Bye, you too.
Bye.